Shall we?
I mean, it's you.
Okay. Content warning. This podcast contains bones, blood, smut, and swear words.
An extra content warning this week. These chapters contain mentions of suicide. If you need help, there's so many resources available. Please look them up. For what it's worth, we love you like Nona loves you. And don't forget, noodles in the back.
Also, before we get into the good shit this week, we wanted to remind you that we've launched a Patreon. For just a few bucks a month, you get extended games, brand new content, access to our notes and murder boards, and much more. So, if you would like to be part of raising money for John's growing collection of multicolored yarns and pushpins, you can head to patreon.com/frontlinefifth or follow the link in the show notes. Okay, now back to that sweet, sweet Bone Zone action.
Act 1. Welcome, penitents. Hello and welcome to the Frontline Fifth, a Locked Tomb podcast where newly minted teenage lictors explore the Locked Tomb series for the first time while a couple of dried-out bone witches cackle over how little they really know. We're currently reading Harrow the Ninth by Tamsin Muir, and this week I got a paper cut, so Harrow and I are both trying to desperately heal our hands while we flip through Harrow the Ninth Chapters 3, 4, and 5. It's the same thing, guys. Same. I'm Hannah, and I write notes to myself more or less constantly. I'm joined today by my fabulous lictor sister, Marie. Marie, do you ever write notes to yourself? Are they in code? How passive-aggressive are they?
I am constantly writing notes to myself that I then promptly lose and never look at again.
Same. Do you ever find them months later and you're like, this is inscrutable?
It doesn't even have to be months later. It's literally the next day. And I'm like, what was this about? I don't know. And I'll throw it away. And then like 3 days later, I'll be like, God damn it, where's that note?
What I'm hearing is Marie is occasionally part of her own master plan, but it's not universal. Also with us today are our sweet baby lictors, basically just 16-year-olds, Brooke and John. Are either of you fans of writing correspondence to your future self?
Yes, I am a data scientist, and it is basically my job to maintain a constant log of what I'm doing each day, so that later on, I'm helping my future self recall all the different like tests and assumptions that like I made during the course of my analysis. And it absolutely is in code.
Actual code.
Literally.
Very literally.
John, what about you?
I write future notes to myself all the time and then forget that I probably left out something important. And I get to the end, I was like, damn it, I should have written this down. So I've been trying to make my notes more holistic and complete so that I don't want to kick my past self when I get to them. And my notes are also pretty much in code. It's like about 80% numbers and acronyms. So if somebody looked at them, they'd be very confused. Why? Just because my company uses so many acronyms, and like we actually have a codex document we give new hires that's about 5 pages long that just lists all the acronyms that we use for things.
Gods.
Because things are so like the phrases are too long and complex for like constant use in conversation.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's hilarious, actually. For Hanukkah every year, my dad gives me one of those like page-a-day tearaway calendars with something funny on it. And I use those continuously as like scratch paper for notes. And I have like piles and piles of, yes, of notes written on the back of page-a-day. Marie just showed us hers. And I almost always will write out what I want to do each day of the week. But by Monday, the things for Tuesday, Wednesday through Friday have already changed. So I have to scrap those notes. And the waste paper basket is too far away for me to bother putting it in. So I usually have like a large tower of just scrunched notes next to me at any given time.
I mean, come on. I've got one piece of advice for every single one of you, which is make it digital.
I can't handle with it being digital. If
Because
it is
then-
not physical, I can't do it.
But if it's
Same.
if it is digital, when it's like a week later and you're, even months later, you're like, I know I wrote a note about this at some point, and you got to Control F that.
See, hang on. I do write myself notes about things I'm like researching. Like I'll just have like literally like not even Word document, like bare bones, like BB edit, like text file for my notes when I'm like researching something for like a lecture or something, and I will leave that in that same file folder. So I do that.
That is excellent. See, I love this organization. And you know what? It can evolve as your week evolves with you. I'm just saying.
Okay.
You guys are
literally a thing that I do.
Such
You are
dorks.
asking a lot of people.
The goal of any note is to ball it up when it's no longer needed and shoot it like a basketball into a trash can. All right? This is the
Aside from that part, I agree. There's something cathartic about being able to scrunch it into a ball. But I will also say I frequently write notes in Word and then copy them onto my pieces of paper and vice versa. So I spend a lot of time copying notes from one place to another that are constantly being changed. It's very effective.
I get that.
So I'm actually, speaking of piles of crumpled up pieces of paper, I'm currently unable to find the letter marked open immediately before Act 2. So while I'm actually digging through this pile of fan mail and electrical bills, what are your takeaways from this week's chapters?
This was like a very depressing set of chapters. This has just kind of been my whole mood here is I'm uncomfortable. I don't know what's going on and I'm kind of depressed, confused and depressed is so far going to be the entire theme of this book is what I'm getting.
Same. But not necessarily about the book.
Yeah, I left these 3 chapters just like, I'm confused. I need more chapters.
Yeah, even the murder bordering kind of felt like it was like hard to do this week.
Yeah, there's nothing really to add to the murder board besides like an actual attempted murder of Harrow, allegedly.
Allegedly.
These were chapters.
I'm pretty sure that this is exactly how I felt when I came to these chapters the first time around. And now I read them and I'm like, as Brooke would say, a clue!
Great.
That's right. They are more fun, I think, on a reread. And I think these early chapters are part of why people have a hard time with this book, actually. They're really dense, but not a lot is happening, and it's confusing, and it's like relatively slow.
It's deep. It's also like quite traumatic. Like you're handling that. And I don't know, you went in for like a fun escapism book of sci-fi and necromancy, and you're like, oh shit, huge, massive trauma.
I will also say, although this is not as deep and poignant, my favorite thing about these chapters is literally that Harrow, when she writes notes to herself, does it in just as passive-aggressive a way as she did with Gideon in book 1. And just as like detail-oriented, have to go back and be like, talk to anybody means living or dead. She's like got a bunch of addendums for herself, like for,
she wasn't just writing to Gideon.
You can't die in this way, that way, or this way. Exactly. It's very funny. Did anyone find any memes in these chapters in our meme watch?
This is not my forte, man.
Okay. I got it. I've done lots of research. So
Go, Marie.
Go, Bone Witch.
So the first one is in chapter 4, where Ianthe says, what's more, now we are about to embark on what promises to be a truly beautiful friendship. That is from, let's say, I think the last line of Casablanca. And it's even more interesting because the context of that is like 2 former kind of opponents or people on opposite sides agreeing to work on common cause because they've both just kind of dealt with kind of either a massive disappointment or kind of a massive failure.
And also they've been thrown into this situation. It's not a friendship by choice, but it's what's going to happen moving forward.
So it's more than just it's a famous line from a movie. It's also actually very thematically appropriate. There's something else she says too, where she says that she is going to be the lone fruitful thing in your salted field, etc. And it's not a direct reference to any like biblical verse that I can find, but it does feel like a very much a biblical reference. And there is a psalm that says he turns the fruitful land into salty wastelands because of the wickedness of who live there. So I don't think it's a specific reference, but it's just a theme.
What else you got, Marie?
Okay, in chapter 5, there's 2 when Harrow is talking to Ortis, and it's interesting because Ortis is referencing his epic poem, and both of these references are from poems. And so the first one is I think it's referencing Harrow not wanting to ever have enough time to finish the Nodiad, and she says she hoped there was never world enough or time, and that is from a 17th century poem called To His Coy Mistress. I'm forgetting who the author is, but it's very much, if you're a literary dork, it's a very famous poem to you. And the context of the poem is just that it's the beginning lines of a poem of this guy trying to kind of like seduce a lady who's being shy. But it is a poem that has a lot of literary conversation back to it from writers. So it's kind of interesting in that context. And then the last one is her telling Ortis, "Yet I assure you that I contain multitudes." And that is from Walt Whitman, Song of Myself. And I actually especially like the context of where it is in the poem, because I think actually that part of the poem is really funny, because it comes from this part where he says, "Do I contradict myself? Very well then, I contradict myself. I am large. I contain multitudes."
Oh, I love that.
I love that a lot.
Famous American poet and Philadelphian bridge, Walt Whitman. The bridge from Philly to Camden, New Jersey is the Walt Whitman
is it Walt
Bridge.
Whitman Bridge?
God, I gotta tell you, I definitely assumed this was a metaphor, like a bridge
It's a
to
literal
society.
suspension bridge.
I have one more thing in our literary analysis, which is I adore just the word choices in these chapters. And so I have a cute little SAT prep game for
I
us.
love this. Thank you, Marie.
Air horn, air horn, air horn. SAT prep.
Okay, so for your first, I've even made it so that you have options of what you're going to choose for.
Ooh, it's a game.
It's a game. It's a mini game. Okay.
It's a game that informs whether you get into college. Let's do it.
Okay. So the first word is racine or racine. Does that mean tiny, white, origin, or sharp?
Can you give it to us in a sentence?
Shit, I didn't put the
Country of origin, please.
This is where
Okay, here. Beginning of chapter 4, where Harrow is getting potentially murder attempted. You found your fingers and plucked the thumbnail from your left hand, screaming into that asphyxiating white darkness, and separated your bloody disc of keratin and flesh into 1,000 racine fragments, then expanded those into a multitude of jagged, splintering fleshettes. Does it mean tiny, white, origin, or sharp?
I was going to go with sharp from the get-go, and I stand by it.
Me too. My context clues were that it would mean sharp,
Sure. Yeah, let's go with sharp.
but I don't like it from its roots.
What you got?
Like, nobody uses this anymore. Like, got taken out of the normal dictionary, and it's only in, like, the Oxford dictionary anymore.
Oh my God.
And it's like,
They dropped it from dictionaries.
it's literally been dropped from dictionaries, and it, I think, is kind of a translation of rooted or root. So it
Okay.
actually kind of means origin.
Yeah, that kind of makes a little more sense. So what the fuck does that mean in
That
context?
doesn't make sense in the context of the phrase.
Like original, like rooted fragments, like fragments from a rooted.
Racine fragments, from the same origin, I guess.
That was the one that made me go on this game. Just so you know.
All
Love
right,
it.
all right. What's up next?
Excellent.
Okay, next one. Nacreous.
I'm pretty sure I know this one. And this is the nacreous robe. It's always described that way.
Dang it. Where does she put it? I'm trying to find it.
Racine, stemming from the same origin. I like that a lot.
Is that new? Everybody else is Googling this right now, right?
No.
Yeah.
I'm not cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm Googling racine. I'm not Googling nacreous. I'm
I just
trying to figure
highlight
out
it
whether
in
this is like...
if you highlight it in the Google Doc, you right click it, there's an option to define it, right? Control Shift Y. And when
No
you do
shit.
when you do that, there is nothing comes up for racine. So yeah, it's not in like the Google Docs dictionary.
All right, nacreous, go ahead.
Okay, nacreous. This comes from the third house saint, blah, 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 was clothed in a beautiful nacreous robe that glimmered all the colors of the rainbow. Gauzy, iridescent white stuff that changed violently in the light. So, does nacreous mean white, pearly, simplistic, or gaudy?
I'll say pearly.
I'm pretty sure it's pearly.
I'll go for that. I like it.
Yeah. Specifically, distinct from pearly as like mother of pearly.
Yes. Yeah.
Because the pearl, the luminescence of a pearl is different than the luminescence or the kind of iridescence and shimmer of that nacreous.
Like inside of a shell.
So
Yeah,
nacra,
exactly.
nacra actually does mean a mollusk shell. Yeah, it does mean mother of pearl, basically, from the 1700s.
Yeah, so rather than saying pearly, it's mother of pearly.
Yes.
Oh, flechette. I didn't give you options of it, but I just love that she uses that word like as a little
It comes
dart.
These
from
are
the origin
all
of
from the same little
arrows.
bit.
Yeah, they're tiny. They're tiny
Yeah.
little. I always picture them as tiny little blades, or like basically
Like
arrows.
fletching?
Like, have you seen Van Helsing, the modern remake with oh my god, who's the actor in
Big
Van Helsing?
man.
2004. Oh my god, I'm gonna be so sad because I love this movie. It's Hugh Jackman. Obviously, it's Hugh Jackman.
Obviously.
It's Hugh Jackman. Now I'm in. I'm willing to watch it now.
He has a crossbow that shoots little flechettes. Basically, it's like a automatic medieval crossbow.
Okay, this last one is jejune. It's from the last chapter that we read, chapter 5, where Harrow is thinking perhaps there would have been something in rocking up to the first house with an octogenarian in tow. A sort of wild and confident, fuck you. Oh, your cavaliers are young? And they fight? How classic. So jejune.
So in French, jeune means young.
Yes.
Jeune.
But it's not
But
quite
this doesn't
spelled
have
the same
No,
way.
we're missing an E.
Yeah.
So does jejune mean simplistic, adorable, or tiny?
I feel like
I was gonna say adorable. Yeah.
From context,
Yeah.
I agree.
And also kind of just being like, it's like a cutesy version of young.
I would say that my words here are not necessarily great, and maybe the better term to put instead of simplistic was naive.
Yes.
Because it is a little bit
adorably
more like,
naive.
like, oh, how
Youthful.
just silly, how cutesy, silly, like naively simple,
Quaint.
almost like how
Oh,
obvious,
obvious?
how quaint. Yeah,
Well, it also feels, it feels like a phrase that Ianthe would use, not Harrow necessarily.
Right.
the ninth house has always been short on wild and confident fucks. So
Yep.
Ooh. There was a nice synonym here that makes sense, which would be insipid.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a good one too.
Cool. Thank you for the SAT prep, Professor.
Yeah. And with that lexical analysis, please hide your hands behind your back because Ianthe is coming as we present Harrow the Ninth, Episode 3, Power Vomit and Murder. Act 2, Bloodied Fists and a Bruised Heart.
This section of Frontline 5th is safe for anyone who hasn't read past Chapter 5 in Harrow the Ninth.
Let's recap. Chapter 3, Ninth House School. Harrow falls in love. Harrow goes insane. Ortis gives himself to the cause. Chapter 4, Third House Skull. 9 months before Emperor's murder. Someone tries to smother you. Maybe. Ianthe delivers the letters, and Ianthe makes a bloody point.
So the Reverend daughter, Harrow Harknonagesimus, was born, as we already know, as this plan to murder all of the children of the Ninth House in an attempt to ensure that there would be a necromantic heir born of the lineage of the Tomb Keepers. And it's enormously clear here that Harrow knew that from early childhood and was reminded of it constantly, that she was the product of a little light child massacre. She didn't have any peers. She grew up in a house full of the old and dying and decrepit. The dead were her mentors and tutors. She was incredibly gifted when it came to necromancy, but to be fair, she also spent all of her time learning. Her life was necromancy and nothing more.
So if you guys had the choice to raise a child that you had sacrificed 200 babies to birth, what would be your chosen approach to that factoid and telling your child about it, raising them with this knowledge?
Considering that they seem to be religious fanatics, this tracks, right? If you weren't a religious fanatic, you wouldn't do this.
What would you do? Lie about it forever?
It's somewhere between when we tell kids that Santa isn't real and what they did. It's somewhere in the middle between there. But yeah, I don't think telling them this early is healthy. When do you tell kids they're adopted?
What? Yeah, no, but actually, I think so. Obviously, none of us ever would fucking murder children for anything, for any reason. I think the equivalent, it's for us. How do you tell a child something that's really horrible, but that they need to know? Harrow has a weird relationship with her parents, right? And she's saying that every time she does something necromantically correct, what she mostly feels from them is relief that their bet paid off, that this thing that they did
Yes.
paid off.
Yep.
And her life is just so fucking lonely and so constantly, the emphasis is always on what she is, not who she is.
Correct, yeah.
And so I think one of the first times when she ever gets to like be a thing herself, own a thing and feel a thing that's all her own is when she falls in love, right? So on this day when she can no longer stand being 200 corpses, she decides that she's going to die. But first she wants to see what the fuck is the whole deal with the locked tomb, right? So she walks up to the door and to her shock, she's actually able to unlock it. And when she didn't die, she was like, oh, well, now I'm curious, right? So she unlocked the door. She spent a whole year figuring out how to get through the traps because every part of this was trapped, ridiculously trapped, until she could make it all the way to the like tomb inside. And in that coffin, she saw the woman who lays there. When her parents find out about this, they're kind to her, but they know that she's destroyed the ninth house and potentially the emperor and all the 9 houses. And they tie nooses for themselves. They tie 2 for Mortis.
Can I just say, halfway through that sentence, I was like, oh my God, is there another person that killed themselves that we didn't know about until this moment? And I was like, oh, Mortis is just gigantic. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Or Mortis, not Mortis. Sorry, Mortis, yeah.
There's no way that this was like one for Gideon as well, right?
I feel like it was a surprising specific, but I don't,
We thought that it was shame. In the last book, John, that was what I had thought. It was shame. But here, Harrow frames it as fear. This was a death of their own choosing as opposed to a death that came for them because the tomb was opened and that released some horror.
They would never be that gracious to Gideon. They would let her figure it out, just like they'll let the rest of the house figure it out and deal with the consequences. They were being
well, but everybody else was basically dead already.
Right, but it was the choice of how to go.
I agree.
As she said, it was a kindness.
But this is an interesting point that actually, like, if they cared for their house and they actually were really afraid of what was coming for them out of the tomb, they could have gone and taken a hammer to the oxygen sealant machine, like killing everybody in the house, right? In a way, so they choose instead to opt out of any consequences. And Harrow can't do it. So Harrow stays alive, right? She puppets her parents and she lives. And afterwards, she sort of goes insane. She can hear things, doors opening when they shouldn't be. She can feel things like hands up against her throat. And Marshall Crux, who is this like
orc.
Yeah, this big old fucking Uruk-hai level, like, yeah. And this asshole, too, who not only was complicit in the murder of these 200 children, but then like later, per Gideon, although I guess it's confusing, maybe plants bombs on shuttles. Like, he's not a good guy, but he's the only person who loves her.
I love this level of complexity for a character.
Me too. She trusts him and she needs him because when something is happening that she's not sure is real, she has to say, can you hear that too? And he straightforwardly says, yes, my lady, or no, my lady. He doesn't, say, what's wrong with you? Like he is a person that she can constantly trust to be real and to tell her what's real.
Which, by the way, is still a symptom of his loyalty and not that he likes her, but whatever.
It's like both like a worship and a respect and a love, but it is complicated in him believing that she is an object of religious worship, not just a little girl that he loves and is going to take care of.
All the pieces are true.
Oh, I was just going to say that now that we know how revenants and ghosts are made from like sudden traumatic deaths, now I'm just wondering if like the things on like the outside of her vision or anything else are just like her parents and Mortis haunting her because she didn't do what she was supposed to do. That was that was like a theory that developed over the course of these chapters.
I have never considered that, but ugh.
Yeah. And Marie, I really like your idea. I mean, part of what's interesting about Crux actually is I think that it bleeds in both directions, right? Like his reverence for her informs a lot of what he's doing, but I think actually he really does love her. And I actually think it interferes with his duty towards the ninth house sometimes. So additionally, in that first year after her parents' death, she sees the body regularly. And when she starts to get older, when she hits 10, the body only appears in her dreams. But the other hallucinations keep going. So despite her necromantic talent, she is the only brilliant necromancer in a house of old and decrepit penitents who were dying off one by one. So to quote Tamsin, the ninth house elderly became the ninth house decrepit, and the ninth house decrepit became the ninth house dead. And there's no one to produce more children. She's the only, like, uterus haver of childbearing age, right? The only equivalent person she could, have sex with is Ortis, and that would merge the lines of Cavalier and necromantic heir beyond salvaging, which we know is a thing that only the fifth house does.
I was going to say, I didn't think that it said somewhere else that like the ninth house didn't practice like resurrection purity. So
yeah, they bring people from other houses in it because that like there was an unsmiling person that was like basically brought in to be like the breeding partner of the ninth house to continue the line is what my reading of that line was.
The ninth house needs a fucking miracle. And the miracle comes in the form of the Emperor's letter. Harrow goes off to Canaan House to become a lictor, but somewhere along the way, she fucks up. Ortis gave himself to her willingly, but she failed. She couldn't choke him down. She's only half a lictor. There had been another girl who grew up alongside Harrow, but she had died before Harrow was born.
Yeah, right? Yep. Moving right along.
Years later, on the spaceship Erebus.
Just really quickly, can we talk about this because we didn't talk about it last week?
Let's do it.
This is such like a edgy teenage. I didn't realize we're in a world of necromancy, but to name your ship Erebos is just like such like a emo edgy.
John, give us your mythology knowledge.
Yes, so in Greek mythology, Erebos or Erebus is literally the primordial deity of darkness and shadow.
It's what you would name your D&D character if you were like, sorry, go on. If you wanted to be an edgelord.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, God, so dark.
It's like the embodiment of and this is another meme we can do on our bonus memes, is like the teleports behind you, nothing personal kid meme, if you're familiar with that one.
Nope.
Oh my God.
No, but you said it so many times early on like when we were first talking about the cover art of Gideon.
Yeah,
so I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll cover that. Yeah, teleport behind you, nothing personal, kid. Yeah, it's anyway.
That's an interesting choice from God.
It's the spaceship Erebos, and it is his
flagship.
Seat of power. Mm-hmm. It's his flagship. Yeah. Harrow, of course, has been hanging out, as we know, in the hospital wing, and she wakes up one day to find that someone's trying to murder her. She wakes up with a pillow over her face. Someone's pressing down and trying to smother her. And so she tears off her own thumbnail and explodes it into shrapnel, explodes it into 1,000 racine fragments, which we now know what it means. So she explodes it into shrapnel, the pressure lifts, and she wakes up again in her bed. There's no evidence in any way of the violence that has happened. Her pillow doesn't have any of her, saliva or potentially blood on it. The room's perfectly normal. Her thumbnail is perfectly intact. And the only difference in her room is that Ianthe is there, sitting at her bedside.
Oh, boy.
So Ianthe looks the same as ever except for two things. Her eyes keep switching between purple and blue-brown, and she has 2 arms, which is one more than last time we saw her. She does seem to be favoring the one that Kithria doesn't cut off, and she is excited to see Harrow, her new little best friend.
I think the word was hungry.
Yes.
Oh, the way that they describe Ianthe's faces, or like all of the different ways that she would look. What is it?
I mean, it's cool because basically, what we're seeing is exactly how little Harrow just like implicitly distrusts her and is just constantly examining her expressions.
You can imagine all of the ways of what Ianthe usually looks like, the way that they describe her here, because they say she often affected a heavy artificial tedium, right? It's like ennui from Inside Out 2. Right? Like,
I did see that.
Or faint and glittering malice.
Yep, feels correct.
And you're like, yep. Sometimes even a self-deprecating and idle humorousness, right? Like, oh, nothing matters. Like, just like the, like the
Those
Gen
are all
Z,
completely spot on.
right? Like so completely. But now she looked at you now with a soft and thoroughly uncharacteristic hunger.
It's rare to be able to see her motivations and see her ambitions, but this is like she wants.
It's also interesting because she literally consumes people, right? Like that's part of like the like thing is that like she like
hunger.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
So hungry for what?
Flesh and soul. She gives Harrow a letter. A letter from past Harrow to be given to Harrowhark immediately upon coherence.
I wish we could just quote out like literally every single fucking thing that Ian says in this chapter. Because she's like, what does coherence mean? Does it mean like not remotely out to lunch? In which case, you
still don't apply.
You still don't apply.
Oh, she's She's wickedly bitchy. I do understand why people like love her a little bit. I still fucking hate her,
She's
but
still funny.
I get it. Yeah. Okay. So the letter is written in Harrow's very personal code that no one else knows, and it is written in her own blood, right? The letter is addressing the Reverend Lady Harrowhark Nonagesimus, known as the Reverend Daughter by her own desire, now Harrowhark the First, writing is the same, now dead.
Jesus.
It's letter number 2 of 24.
Yeah, wherever number 1 is.
Right? Here's baseline points. It's 48 hours post becoming a lictor, and the Harrow who wrote it is going to be dead and must remain dead. The letter can't answer any questions. It only gives demands, and if Harrowhark present day doesn't follow these demands, Harrowhark past will brand her heretic, unable to be affiliated with the tomb.
I like the sort of legalese that the beginning is written in. Herefore after referred to as the work.
Yes, it really is legalese. That's a great way to put it. All right, so there are several guidelines. Guideline number 1, stay alive. She's got a lot of addendums here about the ways in which you have to fucking stay alive, Harrowhark present. Guideline number 2, you can't go home. Guideline number 3, keep the sword on you. And then there's a bunch of associated sword commandments. Never pierce bone with the naked blade, cover it in your blood and regrowing bone, right? Blah, blah, blah. Guideline number 4, you are compromised. Guideline number 5, you owe Ianthe a bundle of favors. So this one has a bunch of specifics as well and reminds you the present day Harrowhark that she's going to have to swear fealty right away. Guideline number 6, read the other letters if and only if their requirements are met. And then there's a side note from Harrow past to Harrow present. It basically says, you, Harrow present day, will think that I, Harrow past tense, have really fucked you over. Look upon me as a Harrowhark who has been handed the first genuine choice of our lives, the only choice ever given where we had free will to say no and free will to say yes, except that in this instance, I have chosen to say no. Guideline number 7, check Ianthe's jaw and tongue, and if anything there has been replaced, kill her immediately. Any thoughts on the letter before we move on?
Yes, lots, but I think most of it is more suited for the what the fuck is going on rampant speculation section.
10-4, good buddy. I love Marie just giggling. It's not even a cackle. It's a giggle. Well, Harrow can think of only one way to do guideline number 7. That would be check Ianthe's jaw and tongue. And so she makes out with Ianthe. And then re-swears fealty.
It's just the saddest makeout scene. Everybody's unhappy and kind of freaked out.
No. Ianthe's kind of like, oh, I'm into this.
But Ianthe's also like, what the fuck? Ianthe definitely has the like,
Harrow's on a fact-finding makeout session. Yeah.
A fact-finding makeout session.
Fact-finding.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Well, Ianthe gives her a nacreous mother-of-pearl robe and the rest of the letters, each of which has requirements dictating the circumstances in which they're supposed to be opened. And some of them actually just make no sense. One is for if Harrow meets Corona. And Ianthe tells Harrow that she actually knows the contents of that one. Harrow, past tense, wrote it in front of Ianthe. Basically, the fealty to Ianthe extends to all the Tridentarii. Harrow points out that Corona's probably fucking dead. Ianthe does not love that. So she responds by showing Harrow a fun party trick. She drives her trident knife, formerly Naburius's trident knife, into her palm without flinching and rips it right back out, and the flesh heals automatically. And then she holds out her hand for Harrow to hold out her palm. And Harrow knows what's coming. She stabs Harrow's hand and pulls it out. And Harrow has to scramble and focus and desperately try to heal the torn flesh and ligaments and fractured bones. Because Ianthe is not there for your fucking amusement either. And Harrow is still only half a lictor.
So this is the part where she's compromised. She still has access to the lictoral well, but it's not like automatic on instinct.
She's half a lictor. She doesn't have what lictors
What does
have.
that really mean? She has exactly what lictors
this
have,
is
which is
one-
access to the lictoral well.
But there's something else about it.
Agreed. Apparently, which
Yeah, it's like it sounds like she has to like pump the water instead of turning on a faucet, right? Like she has to actually put effort in to draw the power out, as opposed to like it just automatically
flows.
Yeah,
that's cool.
I think that is a wonderful analogy.
The
Amazing.
electoral well.
Chef's kiss.
Oh, God, Johns are always great at analogies. Okay. Ianthe leaves, and Harrow staggers over to where the body is standing there by the wall. And there, behind a stack of crates, are fragments of fingernail that are embedded in the wall, sometimes a finger length deep.
So unnecessary. Cats among the pigeons again.
You got to tell us what you mean by that, Brooke. I don't care if we're ahead of rampant speculation.
Oh, just, we get the beginning part of this chapter and you're like, oh, she was just dreaming. And then at the end, you're like, JK, was she? Apparently not.
Who tries to murder necromancers by just smothering them? Like, that's just...
This does feel weak, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
Every other necromancer death we get in the last book and chapters thus far have been like, we stabbed them with a giant bone monster, or collapsing death of a star, like try to blow them up. Like the ways that we've tried to kill necromancers were not like, oh, we're going to smother them with a pillow like they were like a 90-year-old, person in a nursing home.
So far, we haven't been dealing with necromancers that are alternating puking and passing out. So
True,
I do think there's a little
asterisk
next to Harrow Hark. You're right. Meanwhile, on a shuttle to Canaan House, Act 3, Impotent Beyond Meaning.
Let's recap. Chapter 5, Broken Ninth House Skull. Harrow and Ortis arrive at Canaan House. The eggs you all gave me died!
Harrow particularly is sort of freaking out, and Ortis tries to comfort her. Harrow Hark, not historically great at being comforted, great at being helped, so...
Also, her placket of grave dirt isn't doing it much anymore.
Right, it's like not actually doing as much as she needs it to do. Who knows? Ortis tells Harrow he understands her insanity. In fact, he thinks that she may have cause to find it useful. And she almost gets a word in before he starts declaiming again from the Noniad. She points out that the phrase in his beautiful poetry, bone frenzy, may be coarsely misinterpreted, which earns her a lecture from Ortis on the kinds of people who appreciate epic poetry and how the kind of person who coarsely misinterprets it probably is just reading Korean magazines or whatever. And then they have kind of an interesting conversation, right? So Ortis asks Harrow what she thinks it's like to be a lictor. He says, do you think it is a central tragedy to them, their great age, their timelessness? And Harrow doesn't understand this at all.
Spot on, Ortis.
Yeah? What do you think about this?
I mean, I'm interpreting this as him saying, who wants to live for 10,000 years? Like, that's not a human thing.
Right. I don't know. I actually think it's an interesting conversation to have. Like, how does 10,000 years decay your humanity?
Yeah, and Harrow's just immediately like, what? I want to be immortal.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, think of all you could learn and discover in that time.
And I like how he's just like, wow, yeah, spoken like a 17-year-old.
All of this is taking too long. So Harrow's about to get up and press the communication button to call the pilot. But before she can do that, she sees a piece of flimsy on one of the padded seats. And it says, in all caps, and very specifically, like, pen has been poked through the flimsy. Like, someone wrote this intensely. The eggs you gave me all died and you lied to me. She hands it to Ortis. He's like, it's a blank piece of flimsy. And she says, oh, fuck. Well, fuck. We're clearly losing our marbles. But before we go too far down the path to insanity, I think it's time for a game. Interstitial. Very difficult to kill. This week, we finally got a little third house action back in our life, and because we at the Frontline Fifth think that you only get true insight and change when you're working with folks from a diversity of backgrounds, we're exploring our own inner house personalities with a game from Queen Tamsin Muir herself. That's right, we're going to play Seabound, a Locked Tomb universe survival adventure and house identification tool, which you can Google and find. It's literally a game that Tamsin came up with. So here's the game, direct quotes from Tamsin Muir. You and a couple of your friends, if you have any, are on a boat in the ocean. Why are you here? Is this even relevant in the universe? Who cares? This ocean's purpose is to help you pick your true house identity. Luckily, on this magical survival journey, you have the opportunity to pick items to help you. You may salvage 5 items of the 15 I'm about to list. These items will be the key to who you are secretly on the inside. You're probably going to die, but at least you know who you are, which has to be some kind of comfort, right? So the items score you points for one or more of the houses, and we're going to go ahead and do this together to help us discover ourselves. So we're going to pick our top 5 out of the following list.
A sack of mandibles.
A sack of fresh human hands.
A rolled up flag of the cohort. Soldiers of the Blessed Necrolord Prime.
Pen and flimsy.
A bottle of 160 proof rum.
A waterproof portrait of the Emperor, here portrayed as the merciful resurrector.
An empty bottle with a lid to seal it.
An ancient flare gun of curious make.
A book of antiquated ninth house prayers.
A 25-liter container of blood.
A single sharp rapier.
A shading mirror.
A case of absolutely disgusting army rations. Hard and bad.
A case of extremely glamorous Lux rations, but poisoned.
A tinier, leakier, folded out raft with a dubious motor.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and jump across. Marie, can we start with you?
What are you choosing?
Are we pretending that I'm playing this?
I think so.
In real
For
time?
full disclaimer, some of us have already done this, and I don't know, maybe this is going to be exciting to see if looking at this list fresh today on this Saturday morning, afternoon, depending on your time zone, whether we still choose the same things.
Yeah, I think that's more fun.
I have not done this, so this will be fun.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I chose today, I did choose pen and flimsy, and I definitely chose the rum, and I definitely chose the flare gun. And previously, I've chosen the empty bottle with a lid to seal it. But actually, I think that this time I'm choosing, and it's not because I remember what any of these things mean. It's just like, this is how I was feeling. I am choosing a shaving mirror. And rather than the glamorous Lux rations that are poisoned, which is what I chose previously, I'm going to take the absolutely disgusting army rations that are hard and bad. And I think...
Well, Marie, congratulations. You're a fool. Welcome to the 4th house.
Wait, really?
Yup.
How do you feel about that, Marie?
I don't think that this totaled correctly. So hang on just a sec. I may not actually be a fool.
Technical difficulties. I am, for future reference, a fool.
Copy, paste. No, it did. It did do it. I am a fool.
Let's go on to Brooke.
Okay. I think I'm pretty set on the ones I had chosen last time. So I chose a pen and flimsy, a bottle of 160 proof rum. So many uses. And
Thank you.
I didn't think that I would need an empty bottle with a lid to seal it, because once the rum's gone, that serves the same purpose.
That's an empty bottle with a lid to seal it. Great point.
I wanted a single sharp rapier. You never know when you need a little blade, and this, I think, seemed like the only sharp thing here. And then I'm going for the disgusting army rations, hard and bad. Practical. You stuck. I don't want to feel poisoned as well. Even though life is better with good food. I am an obnoxious foodie. Still not poison. Last is I went for the tinier, leakier fold-out raft with a dubious motor. I'm not trying to use this for any purpose of getting anywhere, just like in case you need to, like, I don't know, get out of your current boat and just be on a different boat.
Plus, I feel like you could probably use it for shelter. It probably works as a tarp if you dismantle it.
Sure, it's just
and
a backup,
I think you could fix it as a raft.
I think it's got value.
Yeah. Congratulations, Brooke. You're a dullard. Welcome to the 2nd house.
Yeah. this is what happened. And
Sorry.
Marie. What is wrong, Marie?
Nothing. Nothing at all.
So you guys have been coaching us throughout this entire the first book of the series that the second house sucks and is awful. And so when I got these results, I was initially like, oh no.
But this makes so much sense. You're like, we are in a dire situation. I'm going to be practical about it.
Right. And actually, so I think the reason that I was like, this makes no sense is because like, I think of the second house as being like, militant, quite literally. And like taking up arms as a source of this. And that's not me. I'm not taking up arms.
I will say, I also, I was not impressed with I didn't feel these results were accurate, but maybe we just need to come to terms with who we are on the inside.
Right, because genuinely, I am a militant person otherwise. Like, I am extremely strict with my to-do lists.
This witch is lawful. She ain't chaotic.
I feel very, like, lost without my to-do lists and dissatisfied with life. So I think that there is some true aspect of the second house assignment. So we're going to have a reinvention of the second house, guys.
Yes. Rebirth. That's what necromancy is all about.
Exactly.
You know what? Judith does not represent all of the second house.
Thank you.
And honestly, we didn't get that much from Marta, so maybe Marta's a good egg and she's just shackled
Maybe Marta's
to
really fucking cool, actually. We don't know.
Dead.
All right. I'm going to do me next because I had also done this before, and then we'll end with John, who's doing it for the first time. So I had done this before, and I stand by 100% of my choices. I want a sack of mandibles.
Of course, why not?
The very first thing that I wanted. I'm obsessed with it. I did that based on vibes just because I like bones. I think they're interesting to look at and touch and see. But also, if you're a fucking necromancer, I think it would be massively helpful. You could actually, if you're Harrow Hark, raise skeletons in order to like dig in the island, search for water, search for, you now have many more helping hands. Plus, you got cool bones.
You've put yourself fully into the shoes of a necromancer, and I love that.
Yeah. Pen and flimsy, because I get bored if I can't doodle. A bottle of 160 proof rum. As Brooke said, super useful fire starter, like lots of uses, but also delicious. An ancient flare gun of curious make. I just thought this could be fun for the kids. And a shaving mirror. Similarly, this was one where I was like, there's so many, like it's got sharp edges, so like you can make weapons or tools out of it. Plus it has reflections. You can use that to signal to boats. I was really proud. Congratulations to me. I am also a fool. Welcome to the fourth house.
Wow.
And I hated this answer. And then I thought about it a little. And so she's got comments on each of these. So for example, a mirror can reflect the sun, generating up to 7 million candle power and light. A mirror would be a very fourth house idea, something that sounds unrealistic and stupid on first blush, but turns out to be a 1 in a million incredible idea that might even save your house.
You're like, oh, yes, that is me.
Life. No, but I also was like, I was thinking about this in terms of like alternate uses and how it could be like, I was not thinking about the actual practical things like rations. Right? Like I was instead thinking about like, I was like, maybe this flare gun would be useful for this, like, right? Okay. So I stand by it. All right. John, tell us what you're bringing on this island.
So I did a bottle of rum. So that seems to be
We're all getting drunk together.
Yeah.
I'm using this as a sterilization aid. I'm not drinking this shit. Fire starter and sterilization.
The 25-liter container of blood.
I'm sorry. It's all caps. You have to say it.
Sorry, a 25 container of blood.
Thank you.
A case of absolutely disgusting army rations, hard and bad. A ancient flare gun of curious make, and a single sharp rapier.
Congratulations, John. You are a fool. We've got a third fourth houser. We are all in the military, is what I'm learning. We are the Marines and the Army Corps. That's true? True?
No.
See, this is, and I love the comment on the flare gun.
What does it say? Good.
This thing will blow your head off. It's a gun. Don't fucking fire it here. Noise of body parts hitting water. It is intensely fourth house to take an unbelievably dangerous piece of kit you barely understand and bravely fire it in the hopes of getting rescued.
Oh, what can we say? What can we say?
That's funny. So that's the reason you all are fourth house is because you chose the flare gun.
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, we chose a couple of things. And so a lot of these have different amounts of points for different houses, right? For example, an empty bottle with a lid to seal it gives you points for the 6th, 5th, and 8th house.
I want to point out, though, that actually mine did not work out right. No, I am still a fool. My second thing, I was going to say it's not right. My second thing is a nerd. So my second thing is 6th house. Like, if you just look at the totals, the second most probable thing for me is 6th house. So I got, 27 points for 4th and 21 points for Fool. But I do want to point out that John got...
Tell us.
John has 30 points for 4th.
I have 30 points for 4th, too.
And the next one is, I think, 19 points.
For second.
Wow.
Truly militant after all.
Oh,
wow.
JK, I was looking at John's. I have 26 points for 4th house.
And what's your second?
0.
What? No, sorry. I meant what's the second highest?
Okay, second highest is the 6th house.
Yeah.
I am a nerdy fool, and it checks out.
And I am first, I am 2nd house, and second, I am 7th, and that also feels legit.
Ooh, I love that.
Interesting.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. Well, this was fun. I do have 2 extra questions for us before we move on. So just for fun, a vote. Which of us is actually surviving on this island?
Is it an island? I thought it's a boat, no?
Well,
I didn't choose the flare gun, so I'm the only one who didn't spatter in body parts.
You're right. Maybe we're not on an island yet. We're literally just on a boat.
No, we're on a boat in the ocean, not on an island yet.
I had hope for being closer. Oh, well, in that case, just Brooke. I'm getting drunk before I go. Actually, I'm getting drunk and playing like an epic game of patty cake with all of my my extra hands that I build out of bones. God, I love a mandible, though. I kind of just want to keep some as jaws.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do some like ventriloquism, like nothing. Okay, all right.
Okay, yeah. So Hannah is having the most fun.
Yep.
By far.
Well, now that we know who we are, it's time to figure out what is happening. That's right. It's time for rampant speculation. Act 4. Open to coarse misinterpretation. Now is the time when we ask our darling little 16-year-old siblings to give us their conspiracy theories. So, Brooke and John, what the fuck is happening?
Why are we 16 years old?
You're little baby lictors. You're basically just infants.
Okay. Okay. We left off Act 3 with the eggs you gave me all died and you lied to me. What the fuck?
I gotta get my notepad.
Nobody knows.
Any clues? Any clues at all? No. Eggs.
Eggs are things that hatch. Like it means they didn't hatch. I don't know.
You lied to me is also what was written on the wall in the 7th house Lictor lab.
You lied to us, right?
And it comes back with a paper.
She's coming with pen and flimsy.
Take notes.
A legal pad to take notes.
Yep.
Okay, so we got nothing on the eggs, though.
Yep.
Nothing on the eggs. Absolutely what the fuck, basically. Okay, moving right along. Harrow's work. I think this is where there are a lot of clues, so let's just try and line them up a little bit and see what we can glean from them.
Mm-hmm.
The work essentially is the death of past Harrow Hark, the Harrow Hark we previously knew, and she cannot be resurrected. Well, she should not be resurrected. Promises of the present Harrow's obedience were made in exchange for work. And the punishment of her disobeying any of these guidelines is being removed from the body's resurrection, was what I interpreted.
Whatever that means.
Right. Almost as if there was a promise around that resurrection, and that would be not allowed if she were to disobey this in any way. However, that works. Okay. Side effects of the work include the sword, which is somehow fed, I guess, with blood, but should not be used to cut flesh or bone.
Don't we feed in the first book? They mentioned trying to tempt ghosts with blood or feeding ghosts blood or something. I think that's something that they mention, right, in the first book.
Maybe.
So,
John, I have a theory around this.
Okay, go ahead.
It is past Harrowhark soul that's in there, because who else would hate present Harrowhark
Interesting.
to that level? So I
That's
still
very
think that this was
possible.
a thing where what she said no to, her choice was saying no to not giving Gideon her soul back or something, or ejecting it, whatever. And therefore, I think, but we know that like it's impossible, or the God says it's impossible to extract one soul from the other. So maybe this is just like basically surgically cutting out a portion of past Harrowhark along with Gideon in there in the sword until further notice.
Cannot be used to cut flesh or bone. Is it because like it's one of those like anime style swords that absorbs the souls of things that it cuts? So like
Either that or the soul gets attached into somebody
Yeah.
else's flesh or bone. She has limited lictorial powers or intuition. So, part of her lictordom, which she had to kill Kithrea, is no longer there.
I think this continues with our theory that like we have exorcised basically Gideon somehow, or like chopped that part out and then suppressed it either through her own volition or through somebody else, or as part of the work.
Or actual removal, of a part of Harrowhark as well. Ianthe was involved as part of this work. If we recall, Ianthe is an expert in energy transferal. She likes to study the displacement of souls in liminal spaces between life and death. Don't know how that's going to be useful yet, but does seem like maybe there was a transferal of souls into a sword, maybe?
Asked Ianthe for favors, and that's why fealty, all of that. And then, I guess Soon Tongue is probably somebody who can't.
She was a sewn tongue. What is it?
I'm guessing just based on the fact that, like, it's very literally tied to the jaw and tongue, it sounds like, because if it's replaced, it sounds like the vows no longer apply.
So you think that's part of a vow?
I'm wondering if, like, it literally is, like, through the power of necromancy, preventing somebody from talking about something. And so the only way to do that would be to get if you have a new tongue and jaw, you can talk about it. We swore Ianthe to secrecy via, like, some type of literal ritual that, like, prevents her tongue and jaw from talking about whatever we did.
And in this moment, this is the second time actually we're getting a hint that like Harrow knew more flesh magic than we kind of ever realized before, because she talks about like being really good with aortas when she was younger in the 9th house. And then here she's also doing flesh magic.
Yeah, and she's very good at 7th house magic too, because she raises her parents as beguiling corpses.
There you go. Harrow's eyes still seem to be Gideon's, because Ianthe makes a comment about their color being like something like flowers.
Darkened flowers.
Darkened flowers.
It's like petals in a black room or something like that.
But that's not the super dark color.
Darkened petals wouldn't make you think golden.
Oh, interesting. In my head, they were still more Gideon's, and they might change back to Harrow's black eyes. But if we're if we're thinking that her eyes are not really purely Gideon's, then the change could be going to like bright amber. And then both Gideon and Camilla Hecht are removed from Harrow's memory, and I think maybe Pal too, given that she like had like a gut instinct when she was looking at the 6th house like scraps in the coffin, but like no active memory of why. But she does remember Coronabeth. And so basically we're seeing a lot of inconsistencies in Harrow's memory. I feel like these have to be addressed during this book, right? Like the girl who grew up with her but died before she was born. Her eye color versus Ortis's.
I literally came out of this with like almost nothing. It's so... I think we got confirmation of our... Did we? I don't even know. I don't think we got anything. Like that was kind of my spoilers for this week, or like my random speculation was like, I need more because I don't know. I'm starting to wonder, and this occurred to me just as we were going through this, if part of the work that Ianthe and Harrow did, memory is still literally stored in your brain, right? And necromancers can seemingly manipulate almost any like living tissue. Was like, in addition to like them pulling the soul out, did Ianthe like basically do brain surgery on Harrow to make her forget or plant false, like you in theory would be able to plant false memories or like cut out memories if you can reorganize someone's brain via necromancy.
Although I don't think Ianthe could have planted all the Ortis memories, because those very much, she didn't even know who Ortis was, right?
Yeah,
she kind of forgot.
Yeah, or it was like a, collective thing. Like, like Harrow was helping her, or like a guided thing through. Anyway.
Yeah. Anything else, John?
No.
Well, I guess we'll see if any of that happens next time when John and Brooke meet their big sister in Harrow the Ninth, chapters 6, 7, and 8.
Nobody knows what any of this means. Well, you guys do, but we don't. I've seen Marie's face like throughout this episode, just like her making faces.
Sorry.
And so now I'm just like,
I don't read through the scripts, and so some of the shit that Hannah says, I'm like, you bitch.
all right.
So many clues that we're missing, John. I hope you were.
Look, see, and with these like final sign-offs, I decided that I don't care. I can give you like a spoiler for the next round because I know that, I guess not today because you're driving back from Philly, but you usually just go and read it. So I'm like, the spoiler only lasts like a day.
And it's not a huge spoiler. It's a preview.
I'm going to write this down right now on a piece of paper. And it's based on you making several of these jokes in previous episodes. And I imagine I'll probably find out at some point in the future. So let me write this down.
What jokes?
No, Hannah and Maria both have made jokes about this. So I want to see if I'm right. It's a note to myself in the future. written in my
He's
own
doing
code.
it. He's doing
Not
it.
my own blood, though.
You're going to fold it up in a pocket and never find it again. If you, dear listener, are like me and John and reading along for the first time, make sure you find our reading calendar on our website, frontline5th.podbean.com, or follow us on Instagram or TikTok, which are both linked in the show notes. If you like this podcast, please share it with your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And if you didn't like it, feel free to lie. Now, let's head off to sleep, my baby necros, because Mommy Marie and Daddy Hannah have some deep spoilers to discuss.
Get in, losers. We're going speculating.
I'm slightly disappointed that only one of our fans has taken me up on the offer to send feet pics in exchange for spreading the good word of our podcast.
I'm sorry, what?
There are no feet pics. There are stickers. Act 5, your own master plan.
Warning, this portion of the podcast is 98% spoilers and like 2% snickering.
Seriously, we will spoil anything and everything in the series up through Nona the Ninth. If that's not what you want, turn back now.
You have notes.
I do. And first of all, before we do anything else, I want to say that I'm pretty sure I just took it too far. It's my bad. He knows that God's name is John. That's the thing that he thinks he knows. I couldn't help it. You were like, great analogy. And I was like, ah.
That's where I was like, Hannah.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should not have done it. I couldn't. Oh, God.
Also, Brooke being like, why are we 16? And as soon as she said 16, I was like, wait, they were 17 last week. And then I looked at you and I was like, Hannah!
I decided because I thought it was really funny that, like, you know how Mercy every single time it's like a lower age. So every episode, I have a list of what age they're going to be at every episode. Oh, God, I'm such a fucking child.
It brings us joy in these dark times. And that's
Thank you.
really
It's
all that we're asking
perfect.
for.
That is exactly what we need. Firstly, just wanted to point out something I thought was genuinely funny this time. One of the things that Harrow notes about the body in the tomb is that it has perfectly arched feet.
Right, because it's fucking Barbie. I know.
It made me laugh so hard because it reminded me so much of the Barbie movie scene where, like, her feet go flat and everyone's like, like. I want to talk about Harrow's eating habits really briefly. Even from when she's like 9 or 10, Crux has to like spoon feed her, or she'll eat the same thing every day for weeks, or she has a hard time eating. And I don't know what this means, but it's a real problem in Nona. It's like a central plot point in Nona that they're constantly trying to like bribe her to eat something. And I think that that's interesting that this is like Harrow from the beginning.
I think so. I think it definitely leads into the kind of like everybody's souls bleeding into each other. But I also took it as this is deeply like OCD behavior. Because it's in context with everything else, and like her having moments where she's just like catatonic and like literally just like rocking back and forth in her bed.
She's creating rituals for herself. And she's also, so I mean, again, like everybody's shit manifests differently. But one of the things that I would experience is like delusions where things are very important. It's very important that you carry this marble with you at all times. There's no follow-up. It's not like it is important that you eat all of the stuff on your plate in this way for this reason. It's just the first half of that sentence. It is important that you eat all the stuff on your plate in this way every day. It's important that it just feels so fundamental, and like if you don't do it, you're going to die. Everyone's going to die. So like I feel that for sure. I just think it's an interesting thing because in Nona, I had assumed that her problems with eating were based on Alecto. But if you look even in Harrow, you know, as early as when she was 9, but then also while she's aboard the Mithraeum, she has a hard time eating. Every time fucking God gives her tea and biscuits and all she wants, she's like, I barely can handle water, bro. Like, I need you to,
she's like, please
cool
don't
it.
make me eat the biscuit. Okay.
So let's get into Harrow's state of mind and her insanity. All of the chapters, all of the skulls for chapters in the river bubble are these like broken skulls, right? Where it's slashed down the middle. The only exception is chapter 3, which is not quite in the bubble, but it is told in the third person. I think it's her retelling to herself of her history. So it counts as her current present day memories, not the play that's going to be acted out in the river bubble shortly. But it's an interesting like discrepancy. The holes that are in her memory are super interesting. And Brooke and John brought up some of the discrepancies there. But part of what's interesting is the things that are left over. So my favorite is with bloodied fists and a bruised heart.
We talked about this in terms of helping us figure out the timeline.
Yes.
And basically supposing that because of things that we learn here in this chapter, that in Gideon, you get the opening of the tomb from Gideon's perspective, where you know that Harrow fought her bloody, but also there are mentions in Gideon the Ninth that they fought bloody all the time.
All the time. Yeah, that was the impression.
But that specifically that time she had half of Gideon's face under her fingernails and she goes and opens the tomb and Gideon sees it and tells the parents. But here in Harrow, we get that with bloodied fists and a bruised heart at 9 years old. She unlocks the tomb and then spends a year getting through it.
Yes.
Which suggests that every time that she unrolled the rock was after a fight with Gideon.
Ooh, I didn't think about that. So the question is like, if you break a blood ward once, is it broken forever? Or do you have to use the blood every single time?
They have to re-break it to get back in Nona. And so, it's not like she's going to leave the tomb open.
No.
Just because she opened it once. So for a year, every time that she has a fight with Gideon, her comfort is to go to the tomb.
The only person that like, there are two people who matter to her, right? And when one of them hurts her, she goes and visits the other one. Like, yeah, that's a really interesting and tragic insight.
I also wonder if that means that her constant visiting of Alecto, because it says that after that, Alecto only visited in her dreams. I think it's because she stopped opening the tomb. Because she stopped fighting that way with Gideon.
And so Alecto literally couldn't get out to be, like, her revenant was no longer walking around.
Not walking around in the same way.
Yes. Like, you could say a part of a fragment of her soul has infected or haunted Harrow, so she's carrying that with her inside her all the time. But maybe there is no external presence anymore. I like that. Let's actually skip to Harrow's letter then, because one of the things that our newbies were talking about that I think was really fascinating was the sword. And that's one of like the key things about this is like all of the things she has to do with her sword.
I think that it's going to be so much easier for them to figure out what the hell is going on with Wake, because they've already mentioned, well, what if you can't cut flesh with the sword, because then whatever's in the sword can leave it.
Yeah. And I think actually we gave them good insight by having them read The Mysterious Study of Dr. Sex, because it made them think about how souls can move around. And this is part of what The Unwanted Guest is about, right? Is this idea that like when souls are near one another, there's transference, but they also bleed into each other, that they inform one another, and that they are always then a soul that has been informed by the things that have happened to them. So like you put two souls in a sword, I think they're going to touch. We know that Wake soul was in a baby for a little while, right? And I think that's like, we talked about how that potentially is part of why.
We think.
Yeah. But potentially that informs like who Gideon is as a person. And I actually think it's an interesting concept that potentially Harrow, who's not very good at spirit magic, would not have been able to carve out just Gideon's soul. I kind of like the idea that Brooke came up with, that some of Harrow's soul may also actually be in that sword. That there's like literally an admixture of like potentially 3 different individuals currently hanging out in the sword having tea. And I don't know that that's true, but I think it's a really interesting concept. I think they like cut to the core of it. This was the first day when John suggested that literally they may have performed brain surgery on Harrow in order to remove or rewrite memories.
You know what, John? You deserve all of the trolling that we've ever
done. The other thing he mentioned that I thought was interesting is one of the things in this letter is Harrow tells herself that she needs to bathe the sword in blood. Right? And he was mentioning that ghosts feed on blood. And I've always like I literally have ignored this. I'm like, I don't know why she does that.
I know, but then I was like, well, damn,
maybe that's actually genius.
And it's even more of a hint. Like I always took it as like the way that she has to be about the sword definitely has to do with something to do with that was part of the hint to me, but I'd never made it all the way of like why that was the hint that she put Gideon in the sword.
Yes. The other thing that shows up in the letter is the sewn tongue.
Oh my God.
What?
She fucked up. She thought that because she could feel something in the sword that she had put Gideon in the sword, and she never did.
Oh,
she put a partial piece of Gideon in the sword, but she can feel enough that she's like, there's something in the sword.
Interesting.
And that's where the missing piece of Gideon is it's still in the sword. And the other piece was in her because that's why it could come back.
Right. Well, okay, but some amount of Gideon has to be in Harrow no matter what because she has the lictorial well of power. So like absolutely unequivocally some amount has to stay in Harrow. But I actually really like this. Harrow's not good at spirit magic, guys. Like I like the idea that it may be more mixed up and fragmented than she imagines, and then that she's actually like aiming for. The other things in the letter that I thought were really interesting. So I still think it's shocking that Ianthe gets over God status. Harrow is a devout, like, loves the emperor. It's one thing to give Ianthe, like, hella status.
I always wondered, though. I'm, like, wondering a little bit more about her, the way she feels about Jod. And
is this something...
if she ever talked, like, how much she talked to BOE on the planet.
Exactly.
Because the way that she talks to him, like, she still has a reverence, but it's almost like, it's like a reverence for power, but not a respect born of love.
I think it still has elements of love to it, but I think it almost, those elements could even be the elements of Alecto in her. Like, it doesn't, it's a love that doesn't make sense and knows it's going to get hurt. And I definitely think, we talked about this actually with the epilogue of Gideon the Ninth, that like she has a degree of anger towards God that almost doesn't make sense unless she knows something. And you could argue, I still think she met up with BOE at Canaan House at the end there, which would tell her stuff. But it also kind of goes to what is the secret of the Ninth House that they say only in saltwater. Is it possible that they know some portion of this, that they always have known that God is the fucking bad guy? Like, it's just an interesting concept because she definitely has complicated feelings and interactions with John.
Absolutely. Also, I love that I was struggling for a while of like, what was the first letter? Like, what is letter number 1 that Ianthe has? It's, of course, it's the letter to Gideon. That's why Harrow can't have it.
Yeah. It's sunglasses, right? Like, yeah. Yeah, who knows? God, talk about the fucking letters. We talked about how I desperately want to know what the other challenges in the basement of Canaan House were. I desperately want to know the contents of the other letters. Like, we only get to find out like 3 or 4 of them.
You know?
Yes, tell me all of them. Give me a pile of letters. I will read them stack by stack.
She never had a letter for Calamities.
The other thing she says in her letter is that she can't go back to the Ninth House ever. And that also, I think, is very interesting.
I can't tell if I think that it's just because she can't go back to the ninth house because she couldn't handle all of the contradiction.
Ooh, it would break
just
her brain and break the work. That's a great point. That's a great point.
Like, she would literally either just completely and totally die from brain hemorrhage because of the constant, whatever the hell it is that she did, where she's, like, pressing on the temporal lobe she's
just, like, bopping herself in the brain every time Gideon's name comes up, basically, with a piece of her own bone. Like, yeah.
And that... Like, there's no way that she wouldn't, like, literally go insane. So I kind of think that that's probably the simplest explanation and, like, the biggest thing of, like, you don't get to go home. It's both because you literally can't, and also, you can't go home because of resurrection beasts. So
yeah. Okay, I have just one more thing. So let's talk. No, I have 2 more things. I lied. I have 8 more things. On the ship Erebos, who makes this first attempt on Harrow's life?
Jod.
Okay. That's what I thought too.
I feel like I don't think that anybody else makes sense. The only other people that it could be is Mercy or Ianthe.
And I don't think Mercy's there yet.
Mercy might not even be there yet. I don't think he would trust Ianthe to do it or to pull the punches.
Yeah. Much, much later, Ianthe says something about how, like, part of her plan is that, like, Harrow has to remain alive as part of her own goals. So I don't think she would do it either. Well, so the other thing is Jod pulling the punches here? He's not really trying to murder her, right? He's trying to wake up.
Right.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I think that's what it is. And I think the biggest key here is every other fight that she has with Gideon, she knows that she is in a murder attempt and she remembers everything about it. Here, her memory is wiped and it's as though it never happened. And she was like, did I?
Yep. Also, oh my God, sorry. This reminds me of Kitharia with her, like, weak-ass planning. Jod not bothering to clean up. He's like, I'll just shove a bunch of crates in front of all of these fragments of nail that are embedded in the wall because I cannot be bothered. Yeah. Okay,
and also he has plausible deniability because her only 2 modes are power, vomit, and murder. And so it's like, oh yeah, murder attempt on Jod. She's just crazy coots, crazy pants.
That's a great point. At any time. And actually, that makes you wonder how many more times this has happened. Like, this is the one we hear about. So the last thing I want to talk about is in the bubble. You mentioned to me you think Ortis at this point knows. So he does say, at least now I possess the time to finish it, about his Noniad. How much of this do you think he knows? Is he just like,
He doesn't know that something's going on, but I think that he's realized that he is dead.
Yes.
And that there's something funky going on. And there's a couple of things that he says. It's like the way that she pulls him in, right? Or the way that she starts the thing, he says, Ortis is like, she wakes up completely and totally confused because she wakes up in the bubble and she doesn't know what the fuck's going on.
Yeah.
Right? So she wakes up in the bubble and he is like very much like, please, like, how can I help you? Like, what must be done?
Yeah.
Like, what, how are you? And then she says, I thought I was dreaming perhaps. And he says, I find it perfectly normal. And then he kind of like keeps stumbling over his words of like, you're the thing that you told me. That's what's going on here, right? And then there's like something else he says, Ortis said distracted, the only surprise really being in and expressing this way rather than, no, I'm not really surprised.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot that Ortis is thinking in that mumbled, like, jumbled paragraph that he's not saying out loud.
Because he's like, I don't know, like, how much I can push at this without losing my soul.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And actually,
and so I do think that it colors his basically, I don't expect you to understand basically the weight of all of those years, or to like get it the way that I do. And he's not talking about the fact that he's twice her age.
No.
He's talking about the fact that he is dead and he now has eternity, perhaps in this bubble with her?
Right. Or in the river. But either way, just a forever to like weigh him down and draw out his humanity and leech away his soul.
I have one thing that we didn't talk about that I caught this time around that I was like, well, damn. One of the main things that is wrong with Gideon's body is that she has been pierced through the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And Harrow has a knack with the aorta. And Tamsin is a troll. So what if, in Alecto, Harrow has to heal Gideon's broken heart?
Oh, I actually really, really like that. That's glorious on a number of levels. That's a beautiful fairy tale. And I like it. Act 6. See you next time, my little nunlets. Well, it looks like we're just hanging around, waiting to get to the Mithraeum, so we're going to pass back out now, but we'll be back next week for Harrow the Ninth Chapters 6, 7, and 8. If you want to follow along with us, our reading calendar is available on our website at frontline5th.podbean.com, and you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, which are linked in the show notes. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your friends and give us a 5-star rating anywhere you can. And of course, if you didn't enjoy the podcast, feel free to lie. We have a Patreon, which you can join for access to bonus content every month. You can become a patron. They're sort of the coccyxes of the human race. The butt bone. At patreon.com/frontline5th. We're hoping to open a merch store shortly on Redbubble. If that exists by the time this episode launches, we will link it in the show notes. And finally, if you have any fun theories you'd like to share with us, feel free to email us at frontline5th@gmail.com. With that, I'll just remind you not to unlock any tombs or enter any doors without permission because, ghosts. Bye!
Frontline Fifth is a Locked Tomb podcast conceived by Mariana Mako and starring Mariana Mako, Hannah Grenwald, Brooke Anderson, and John Ryan. Our cover art was designed and created by Mariana Mako, who also edited this episode. Our fabulous music was composed and recorded by Blake Anderson. Sonia Grenwald designs our merch. Ha! Gorgeous! The Locked Tomb is a completely dope-ass book series by Tamsin Muir, who does not know we exist and is in no way affiliated with this podcast.